along, Muckrock, and then last but not least, Safe Drinking Water Project. So that said, I believe we can get started. So Migrant Service Map. Here's your clicker.
It's been a while I've spoken in front of a big crowd like this. Hi, my name's Tobias. I'm super happy to be telling you about Migrant Service Map. It's a project that's been with Code for Boston for about a year now, and I'll tell you about how it came to be. Let's find out. There we go. Okay. So Migrant Service Map is an initiative that was started with Refugees Welcome. They're a nonprofit that's embedded at UMass Boston. And their mission is to streamline service provision for immigrants and refugees across greater Boston. So they were taken in by Code for Boston with their project, and several of us, I'd invite us to raise our hands, who worked on it, are here tonight. Yeah, great. And we also had a technology partner, Mapbox. They're an open source platform for building custom mapping applications. So I'll tell you about how we use that in a bit. So a little bit about context, right? We know migrant people are actually all around us, and there's a variety of different services that exist for these kinds of people. Things like resettlement services, cash assistance. And while there are a bunch of those kinds of services available, it's not necessarily easy to find them, right? There's a variety of levels of websites that people have or don't have, and they're not necessarily searchable. So it's not easy. In addition, some have security concerns, so they won't share their information publicly. The other thing to keep in mind is that these service providers, while they know their colleagues who work within their agency, they don't necessarily know about other service providers in Greater Boston, which can be a challenge if, let's say, I'm a lawyer working with a client and my client would like other types of services, like maybe help with education. I don't necessarily know where to point my client, and we'll go a bit into that later. So it's challenging. What's our initiative then? Our initiative is to develop a mapping application that'll help different service providers find other service providers. And just to get a sense of the different kinds that are available, right? I already talked about education. There are things like job placement, mental health services. And this is what we developed our application for. Here's a snapshot of it on the upper right. And it'll work you through the basic workflow. We'll start by we can search different provider types, come up with a list. We can sort through that list to find different types of service providers by name or by distance from a certain location. Then we can mark certain service providers to save them in a list that we can share with a client. So we're going to imagine, again, that let's say I'm a lawyer working here, 50 Milk Street. I have a client in front of me that's interested in education services in addition to what we just worked on together. So let's have a look at that. So I would go and look on our application for education service providers. And here we see them on the map. We see individual providers where they're more densely packed. We have clusters. And then we have a list in the panel of all the education providers that are in the database. Here we see them. Here we go. So we're looking at service providers that are close to us here, 50 Milk Street. I see Raising a Reader. I want to recommend that to my client, so I can go ahead and save that. Now, I also know of a different service provider that's it's called College Bound, and I'm going to search for that by name, so I sort the list, and I can scroll down. Just double check that it's the one I was thinking of. There we go, saved it. So now I have two education service providers that are in my saved list. Take a quick look at that list. Looks like it will help it along. Okay. So we're helping it along. So we have our safe providers here, and now that I have a list I want to share with my client, I can choose to print it out or email it to them, and they can go visit them as soon as they leave the office. So that is a look at our application. So what are next steps? We actually have handed this project off to Refugees Welcome about a week ago. They're going to do some user testing, and there's potential for them to come back to Code for Boston to build out the back end. Our application's live. The URL's down there, migrantservicemap.com. You're welcome to explore it right now. And I'd like to thank, especially start off with the volunteers who worked on this project, CIC for hosting the space, and then Code for Boston for just having us all come together. So thank you. Yeah, so let's invite a couple of our team members up, and we have a couple minutes for questions. I see one in the back.
Yes, how is that save list being stored between reload and HTML sorting?
Yeah, that's a good point. As Tobias mentioned, there is some sensitivity around security and the personal information that migrants are going to want to be accessing. So we made sure that that is it's not saved at all. So that's purely within the session, and if you reload the browser, that's going to disappear, and that's by design. We wanted to make sure that it was as secure as possible and did not provide any information that could be used against the people coming to seek these services, because they're very sensitive to that. You know?
Was there an effort to, is there an ability for you to use the map in languages other than English, or is the assumption that refugees and migrants will be working with an English-speaking, consultant?
So, so the users of the app at this point in time are actually social workers who work with migrants, and they're familiar with many of the resources that are in this database already. There's been discussion about making it something that migrants could access directly. However, that's not currently in development.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
You mentioned that some of the organizations don't even want their address to be public. How did you deal with incorporating those into this database?
Should I take that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we, Refugees Welcome actually provided us with the database, and that information is omitted in those circumstances. When you are searching in the app, you would see those items by category. However, you would not see their location listed along with them. So.
Okay, I think that's all we have, so move on to the next project.
All right. All right.